welcome. My name is Emilia Laurila and I am joined by risk engineer Lina Sundgren and Netta Keskiketuri, head of the Energy Competence Center. In this podcast, we will discuss the future energy mix, how the EU is supporting the green transition, as well as dive into the role solar power has in this area. So to start things off, where are we now regarding green transition and how are we doing with our shift towards renewables?
It depends on what you mean by we, since globally we are in very different phases in different geographical areas. But globally, 30% of the power supply is relying on renewable sources at the moment, and in Nordics it's exceeding 50% at the moment.
That sounds like, to a complete outsider in a way, that sounds like we're doing well, like we're in a good place.
We are on the way, at least, yes.
Okay, but why are we so well on our way? Like what is our secret in the Nordics?
Firstly, there are several reasons, I think, but firstly, we have a lot of hydropower in Norway and in Sweden and Finland also, so that's one reason, and secondly, we have had really high ambitions in these regards. We have a lot of wind power and a lot of nuclear. Big challenge is the fact that we need reliable and stable power supply, and renewable energy sources such as wind and solar, they are weather dependent by nature, so it means that they are extremely volatile. And meaning that we would need a massive power storage system to support us. And we don't have that yet.
But where does the kind of responsibility lie in creating these buffers and these storage systems?
Well, I think that the market will solve this problem by itself. So the companies will invest in batteries now that it's profitable.
But then what will happen to the use of fossil fuels?
Unfortunately, I'm afraid that we won't get rid of fossil fuels for decades on a global scale. We need stable and reliable energy sources, so we have them in the power energy mix for years to come. And on other hand, we also have other areas where we need oil. We need plastics, we need pharmaceuticals using oils. So oils are everywhere with plastic. So we cannot get rid of them, never.
Exactly.
I never say never, but not soon.
So if we then move on to the interesting part of legislature and these renewables, the European Union is also taking some big steps forward. One of these includes the REPowerEU proposal. What is REPowerEU?
Well, in practice, REPowerEU is a European Commission plan to end reliance on Russian fossil fuels by 2030. So it's a really ambitious target.
Mm-hmm. But what does it concretely look like? What does it entail?
There are several ways to achieve that target, but one practical example is this legislation regarding solar panels on the rooftops.
And this legislation is very interesting. It came in the end of last year. And EU is saying that all new public and commercial buildings shall have solar panels in the end of 2026. And when I say all new and public, I mean buildings that are above 250 square meters. And then we have all public and commercial buildings existing that shall have solar panels until the end of 2027. And then in the end of 2029, they also add that all new residential buildings shall have solar panels on the roofs.
This all sounds great. How do you see the new legislation, Lina?
I think it's very important to be able to do the green transition. But when you put solar panels on roof, there also comes risks with it that we have to keep in mind. If you should start a fire, or if a fire will be able to start, you need oxygen, fuel, and an ignition source. And in this case, the solar panel can be the ignition source. And then we have the material in the roof that can be the fuel. And that is why we come into, if the roofs have combustible insulation, that's a big risk, for example. If you don't have a combustible material on the roof, you don't have the fuel. So then a fire cannot occur.
But does this require from us as an insurance company to kind of figure out new ways to assess risks with companies?
Yes, and many of our buildings today have plastic insulation in the roofs, and there are degrees in how good they are in compared to how much heat they can transfer in a way, but also how they react to a fire. And we actually have done some tests with this with the client, where we wanted to see how if you have plastic insulation and you put a non-combustible barrier above, like between the plastic insulation and the solar panels, will that affect that the fire doesn't go down to the insulation? So in one test it was mineral wool, and in the other one it was combustible insulation. And the tests actually showed that this non-combustible material protected the plastic insulation and the fire didn't go down. But it's important to know that the test was only, like this big. So there were no joints, no penetrations for cables and so on. It became a PhD study. A Danish researcher named Jens Stierman Kirstensen, where he made it in a bigger scale, but still this with joints and penetration is not included. So we cannot rely on this yet, but we really want to see studies that shows that we can put this non-combustible layer, because that will help our clients a lot, due to that many constructions have these plastic insulations.
So if you do have the unfortunate case of a solar power fire, what do fire services struggle with when extinguishing burning panels on a rooftop?
Well, the main thing is that even if you shut off the power from the panels, they are still producing direct current. They will need a distance to extinguish the fire. So they need to be able to come with the high vehicles and put out the fire from the outside, because otherwise it can be a risk for their lives. And that is also why it can be a good thing, for example, to put the inverters close to the solar panels, so you don't get some long cables. And then the risk for them, if they need to go into the building and up on the roof, the risk is minimized for them. And also another important thing for the fire brigade is how big the area is where you put the arrays. Are there any path for the fire brigade so they can go on the roof, or have you covered the whole roof with solar panels?
So it's quite a lot of things to consider, like fire safety-wise. But if we jump back a little bit and think about discussions with our clients, do you see how prepared they are, for example, if there are any actions being taken towards a greener future in general? And do you feel that customers are prepared for this coming REPowerEU legislation?
The challenge for our clients, I think, is that they want to install it, but is it good to install it due to the risks that occurs? And that's why you need this risk analysis and look deeper into how to do this in the best way. We have this study that I was talking about that is positive, but we cannot rely on it yet. That's the issue.
So we need more information to actually be able to do that. But how can we now, with this knowledge that we have, support our clients in responding to this new legislation?
I think the main thing is if our clients would like to install solar panels, is to contact the insurance company. It's also to follow the standards that exist, and also in many countries there are electricity safety rules that you need to follow. The situation with the standards is also that you have different one in different countries. For example, in Sweden we doesn't have anyone. In Germany there is one saying something, in Netherlands saying another thing, and in France another thing. So in a way I think Europe need a common standard for this now when the legislation is here, and to make it easier for the people or businesses that shall install the solar panels.
But so small steps, we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I think so.
Big. Thank you so much, Netta and Lina. This was super nice to have this chat with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.